All right, so we are ready to go live, and we are live with Thomas Reed from Malwarebytes. And this is one of the few times we didn't have a big crowd prior to the hitting the go live button, and we didn't get all the pleasantries out of the way. Thomas, it's so good to see you. I
Yeah,
I haven't seen you. Here we are, pandemic, blah blah blah. But
yeah.
uh,
It's
yeah, I
been
really haven't seen
years.
in quite some time.
Yeah,
Uh, So I was so glad you were able to do this today. Um, for the people who may not be familiar with you, tell us who you are, what you do.
yeah. So I am the director of Mac and Mobile at Malwarebytes. And so in that role, I direct all of the development on our Mac and our mobile products. I'm primarily focusing right now on the engine, the protection technologies. I also, as part of my role, do a lot of the Mac threat research here at Malwarebytes, including writing stuff up on the blog, which I wish I had more time for it these days, but uh, it's harder and harder to find time for the blog, which is a shame because I do enjoy that.
But that's also for any security company. That's also a big part of. I don't want to trivialize it by saying it's a big part of marketing, but it's a big part of marketing, right? Like
Yeah, sure.
you,
Yeah,
it's a big part of you kind of getting to show off your skills to the world and say, "Hey, I did this thing." But it also gets people viewing the
gets
blog more.
views. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
views and it's all the things.
yeah.
So yeah, it's important to dig in on that. Um,
Hmm.
and for people who might not be familiar with Malwarebytes, tell us a little bit about Malwarebytes because I know the company's been around for a while, but I'm from New York. I don't get all those ads in San Francisco, like and billboards that tell you about every security product in the world and like, hey, it's a rough place out there. Like, use us or you're
Yeah,
screwed, right?
yeah.
No one here cares about computers. We get a lot
No.
of bank ads, but tell us about Mel.
Yeah, so it has been around a long time now. Oh gosh, I believe that we just had our I want to say our 15th anniversary of when it was founded. I've only been here for almost exactly 7 years now. So I actually signed the paperwork back in um, May 7 years ago. So I think it was May, I want to say it was something like May 20th or something like that. Sometime in late May. I don't remember. Um,
Happy malware
but
bites anniversary.
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
so,
I still say 7 years because I would have guessed longer. Like I just associate you with Malwarebytes. I would have guessed like employee number 4 or something.
yeah. No, I was employee number 165, and we are now up to over 1,000. So pretty big. But yeah, before I joined, Malwarebytes was really Windows only. There was an Android app that was free, um, and that Android app has progressed a lot since then. And then, of course, we branched out when I joined into Mac, and then later iOS. Um, so you know, and I don't have any involvement with it, but I understand we're working on Linux as well. So
And did they bring you in specifically for Apple related products, or was that an offshoot of like, oh, hey, telling them like, I'm really interested in this. Let me go do this thing.
yeah, yeah. So I'll tell you the story. So at the time, Malwarebytes was Windows only, and they were, you know, trying to sell their product to businesses. And there were a lot of businesses that were asking them, well, do you have a Mac product as well? Do you cover Macs and Windows? And their answer always had to be no. And they were losing sales. Um, so they were looking for some way to create a Mac engine, to build a Mac client. And one of the board members, I think his mother's computer got infected. He downloaded Adware Medic and cleared off the adware. And he called up Marcin that day and said, "Hey, Marcin." Marcin is the CEO of Malwarebytes. Said, "Marcin, you've got to check this out. Go look at Adware Medic." And so at the time, we were on vacation somewhere, and I can't even remember where. We were on vacation somewhere, and I took my computer along with me to keep up with Adware Medic support emails and stuff like that. And I got this weird email from some guy I had, I was like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about, your product, and I'm from Malwarebytes." And I was like, "Oh, this looks like, a bunch of the other junk emails I was getting at the time," and I almost threw it into the junk folder. But for some reason I didn't. I thought, okay, I'll look at this more closely when I get home. And then I forgot about it. And it was probably 2 weeks later when I went back to it and saw it. And I was like, oh, I should reply and figure out what's going on with this. And the rest is history. So
Nice. So that is interesting. I mean, I'm looking at the other faces on this call right now, and like, I think everyone here knows the pain of a poorly ported Windows product to like, oh, we need to fill this hole of having a product with the Mac, so we're just gonna have some Windows person like learn, like go make a Mac product, and it always shows, and it's not a great experience. It's great to they brought someone in like specifically to deal with this, so that's great. And they had sort of preview of what you could do. So
yeah, and honestly, I'm just as glad that I'm not not working at all on the code anymore. You would not want my code in a production product, honestly. Adware Medic was about as big a project as you'd want me writing code for.
Yep, I feel you there. So that brings up a good point. Going back to, you said you're the director of Mac and mobile, so you're also involved with iOS, perhaps?
Yeah, iOS and Android as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and iOS. I use iOS every day. I have an iPhone, I have an iPad. For the Android side, I lean on some other folks for a little more of the technical expertise and focus more on the higher level, strategy stuff. So
okay. And I think the other thing that brings up is, you mentioned you came to Malwarebytes after having written this adware product, and that's not quite malware, but it is. And in some security circles, I've just heard this sort of like bucket term of, it's unwanted software, whether it's malware or adware or ransomware or like whatever. You just sort of bucket into like, yes, it's all unwanted. We don't want things that redirect our DNS. We don't want things that serve ads. We don't want outright malware that steals data or any of it. So what, before we get to like, what can Malwarebytes do for me, like what does this landscape look like? What are you finding on Mac and iOS or whatever you're focused on? What does this landscape look like in 2022?
So my primary focus when it comes to all the threats is Mac. I don't really have any involvement on the Android side, and there's really not much we can do on the iOS side, unfortunately. But so on Mac, really the threat landscape is almost entirely adware and what we call PUPs, potentially unwanted programs. So stuff like advanced Mac cleaner, Mac Keeper, Mac Booster, all these big name programs that somehow get on people's computers, and they didn't intend to install them. Um, so those are all, we classify those as pups, and so like a tiny percentage of the Mac threat landscape is actually real malware, like truly malicious stuff. So I sort of, the way I classify it is, pups are legitimate software. They come from a company with a known address. Nobody's trying to be sneaky, but they're um, they have a number of characteristics that make us classify them as unwanted. Adware, the real victim is not you. It's a hassle on your computer, but the real victim is the advertising companies, the affiliate programs, anybody like that they're defrauding to make money, and you are just really a source of clicks. That's all your computer is. Malware, I classify it as malware if you are the target, you are the victim, your data, your money, something of yours is the target of this malicious software. That's what I classify as malware. And I think only like maybe 1% of the Mac threat landscape is malware. So it's very small. Most of it's adware and pups.
Yeah, and I think talking about adware, and you say, the source is clicks, and that's just to make money, and that's the driving force for, I guess, any theft, really, right? Is like, where the money is, get the money. And I think, yeah, you're right. With malware, some of the things I've seen is that, either through phishing campaigns or sometimes very direct, like social engineering, you try to get someone to go install something, and it gets some persistence, and yeah, it can start lifting data off, whether it's a rootkit to get, IDs and passwords or whatever. But those are, that's sort of like the 1% slice, and it's usually very targeted, and the people doing that are definitely better than like the script kiddie level group, and they're really going after something, whether that's political information or more likely money, like we want to get money out of people's bank accounts or whatever.
And it seems like more and more the malware on Mac is really very targeted and very a lot of it is government malware. And a lot of it is in the Asian market. Like a lot of it is coming from North Korea or China and affecting people in those countries or nearby countries. So,
or outside of those countries, I think I think you see North Korean activity.
And they have North Korea,
very talented hackers there.
We see some of their malware in other countries. A lot of the Chinese stuff, we'll get rules put into the database for it. We'll detect it, and we'll never see it in the wild because we don't have a very large user base in China. Partly because, as I understand it, there are some problems with getting network communication through the Great Firewall and getting the database updates and app updates and stuff like that to come through. So
I mean, just dealing with different countries' laws can always be a bit of a challenge. So what else have you seen across the landscape? Like, I guess you said you mainly focus on the Mac, but how much does that bring you into contact with non-Mac things? Because Macs have to talk to servers, or they wirelessly talk to iOS devices or AirTags, or this whole new ecosystem of sort of like IoT devices, for a sort of a bucket term.
So there's definitely some server related stuff there. I really haven't seen much in terms of IoT devices affecting Macs, but like some of the things that we see that are kind of they're malicious, but they're not directly infecting the Mac. One that we've been noticing a lot of lately is calendar spam, and it's been a recurring problem. The latest trick is that they trick you into accepting an invitation to subscribe to a calendar, and then all of a sudden your calendar is full of, in some cases, very nasty events with, like sometimes they're pornographic, sometimes they're, like sales on different kinds of software. A lot of times, ironically, it's antivirus software that these things will push on you. And so you'll get these notifications, like it'll put all these events in your calendar, and so you'll get the notifications popping up in the notification center all the time with, malicious links in them, and everybody's like, oh, my computer's infected, and it's affected. It affects Macs and iOS devices, and it's really not an infection. It's just a calendar you were tricked into subscribing to.
Yeah, I was going to say that the fortunate thing there is you can just unsubscribe
Yeah,
calendar, but you have to know to do that. I remember
exactly. Yeah.
Probably a decade ago, this hit me. There was I forget what it was, but some sports related calendar. I was like, yeah, I want to know this team's updates. And I kind of searched around for like public calendar of, games, whatever. I found it. I subscribed to it. And sure enough, within a day or two, I'm getting these notifications like, oh, what the hell? I did this to myself. All right. I can at least just unsubscribe, but I don't
the
know.
average user doesn't know, though. That's
Right.
the
They
problem.
might not tie those two things together. Like, oh, I
Mhm.
subscribe to this calendar and I'm getting these notifications. Like,
Yeah.
that is the frustrating thing.
Yeah, and the same thing happens too with like website notifications in your browser.
Yeah.
They'll trick you into allowing those, and then you just get these notifications out of the blue, and the average user has no idea where they're coming from. So
yeah, I'm pretty paranoid, and I don't allow anything, or I hardly allow anything. Like,
me either.
no notification of anything. No, you don't get location services. No, you don't get you don't get access to anything for the most part. I think I even started using something for paying for gas now, and it's like, tell us your location. It's like, nope. It's like, well, you're gonna have to scan the QR code on the pump. Well, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. Like, I'm just gonna scan the QR code on the pump and do it that way.
I had a printer recently that you couldn't set up without installing the app on your phone and giving the app location permissions.
Yeah, that is, some of them are getting a little obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not actually in the market for a new TV, but every now and then, I get this, ad or something from like Best Buy and like, hey, check out these TVs. I'm like, yeah, I'll just browse, right? And every single TV is, smart Tizen TV, smart Fire TV, smart, whatever TV. I'm like, I just want a dumb piece of glass that shows whatever's at the other end of this HDMI cable. Like, that's it. I don't want a smart TV.
Same here.
But I've definitely heard of people with the same thing where it's like, oh, I couldn't use my TV for the first time unless it connected to the internet. And like, oh my God, this is not the future that I want. But yeah, let's bring it back to like what you're doing and seeing. How is Apple doing? Right? Like, if that's your focus at Malwarebytes, you're not the Windows person, you're not the Linux person, you're focusing on Apple. And Apple's definitely made some strides over the last decade, continually locking down the OS. Like, how are they doing? What are they doing right? What are they not doing?
Well, I think that Apple does a great job with malware. They generally, when there's some new malware out there, they'll generally get the certificates revoked quickly. They'll get, new rules added to XProtect and MRT, which is the malware removal tool. Some folks may not have actually heard of that. It's kind of a semi-secret thing that lives in the OS, and it scans your computer every now and then on a schedule that's anybody's guess. And when it removes something, you probably aren't going to know about it. So it's a very secret sort of thing. But they do a pretty good job with that. Now, the problem is that they really only focus on malware with those tools and maybe a little bit of adware. And that's a very small fraction of what actually affects people in the market. So there's still a lot of room, a lot of need for something else. And you know, I'm trying not to say go buy Malwarebytes, you know, because I don't want it to be like product centric, but there's a need for some kind of something to help the average user to avoid some of this junk that's out there.
Yeah, I think you're completely right about that, and it's I think it's a tall order for Apple to deal with all of it. Probably, like
It
I guess
is.
over the years we've seen, you know, Gatekeeper and SIP, Rootless, whatever it was called at the time, and you know, now we're seeing like the Secure Enclave from iOS come over to the Mac and T2 chip and be built into the M1 chip. So I mean, there's a ton of stuff working together, but at some point it's a personal computer and people are going to need to be allowed to install stuff that they deem needs installing. And some of that stuff, like you said before,
is not good.
right, they might be tricked into it one way or the other, or just, you know, the unfortunate thing on the internet is sometimes just like, oh, I just clicked the wrong link. Or, you know, or you get the case where there really is just sort of like, you know, these drive-by downloads or a website serving up malware. And it's just as simple as that.
And it does happen. It's not as common on Mac as it is on Windows, but it has happened. You know, so, but yeah, I think Apple has done, with all of these technologies they've implemented in the system, they've done a really good job overall of protecting you against the extent to which malware can get access to your data and can damage your system or infiltrate your system. But the core problem, as you said, is that in the end, there is a person clicking things on this device. And, malware does not need root permissions. It does not need fancy anything to infect your device and get some of your data. And it may not be able to, by default, get things, say, in your documents folder. But it's pretty easy to socially engineer somebody into giving you that permission. Or, I mean, folks like, and he's going to have to forgive me if I'm saying his name wrong, Chaba Fitzel. He's finding TCC bypasses all the time. And so there are always bypasses for that sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think overall you're right. Like Apple's done a pretty good job, but they're still plugging holes in the dam every now and then. But just to loop back, you mentioned when you were talking about malware removal tool, you were talking about the speed that Apple has gotten to, and I agree, and I think that's great. But there's definitely this sort of dark past with Apple where something would be reported to them, or there would be a known vulnerability on, like back in the day, on like bug track mailing list, and it was a component that Apple had included on Mac OS, and it would just be 6 months of silence from Apple, and you're like,
what's going on?
Is this getting patched or what? So I think that whole cycle from Apple has gotten a lot faster, which is great to see, because
it has. But they, how many of us still believe the Apple patches the current system and the previous two.
I haven't believed that for a very long time.
For years I questioned it. I was like, I don't know that I believe this. It's this, sort of rule of thumb that MacAdmins like, because it just feels good somehow. I don't know where it came from, honestly.
Current -2
But
is definitely out of date. Current
yeah,
-1 is even
it's
questionable around,
yeah.
like, they'll patch current very quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're just left to wonder,
Then
like,
you're left, yeah.
they might patch it, they
And that's like,
might not.
folks in the security community, even we were debating for years, like, did this vulnerability that just got patched in the latest version of the system, did it not affect the older versions? Is that why it didn't show up in the release notes?
Right.
And finally, I don't know if anybody else here has seen the research, but Joshua Long did a bunch of research into that. He contacted a bunch of people who had reported the vulnerabilities to Apple and was able to prove that, yes, these vulnerabilities did affect the previous systems and that only the current one was actually fully patched.
Yeah, I've seen other people do that research independently and come to the same exact conclusion. So when Josh released that and spoke about it, it didn't come as a surprise.
No, I wasn't surprised, but I was sure glad to see the proof of it. So.
Yes, and to make it a little bit more well known.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess maybe schools get stuck into having to maintain a particular OS and not upgrade. I don't know. I feel bad, like I'm in a tech bubble, and in tech, I'm allowed to say get on the latest, and that's it. Like,
you probably have latest M1 machine and the latest
but even across
and
my company, it's
like,
even if you're still on Intel, whatever, it's like,
oh,
Apple released a new OS, like by the end of the week, everyone's on it, where you can do your work. Like,
that's awesome.
You can force people into that, and I definitely remember times in sort of like recording and film studios where some of the systems are treated as turnkey systems. So you don't go update Mac OS before you find out if, Avid or Pro Tools or any of these other components have given it their blessing.
Yeah.
And that could be frustrating, but most of those you could also keep off the internet if you really needed to. But those days are also, I haven't dealt with that environment in quite some time. Those probably, hopefully, over, and you can just go update. That would be great. But
I think there's still the problem is there's still some barriers. Like if you've got old 32-bit apps, you can't upgrade past Mojave. I've got a machine over here that's still on Mojave so that I can play my old 32-bit Steam games.
Yes. I have, like a 1014 machine somewhere. I think the answer to that is just get a Steam Deck and be done with it. And you can go
play. Then another barrier here too, though, is I can't run a VM on my newest M1 machine. And I really, for my job, part of it involves being able to run a Mac VM, and I can't do that. So,
well, you can run a Mac VM. You can't run.
I haven't gotten it working. Maybe it has changed since the last time I tried.
Yeah, it depends when you try.
I'll have to go try again. But
the success story is running a Mac guest on an M1 Mac. That's I think the success story. But everything else, the train.
Oh yeah, like Windows. But I don't care about Windows.
But I think a lot of times a
lot of people do though.
Yeah, or a Linux.
Yeah.
Host or something. Just to, like, they need to test something. But if you want to build and destroy Mac VMs, I don't know, Nate, you might have some experience with that. There's the UTM, right? And I think Parallels, even if you want a commercial offering, I think Parallels even works.
Will it do it? Yeah.
Anka is my favorite at the moment.
VMware.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Anka.
Anka.
Yes.
I
Tell
have
us
not
about
heard of that one.
Basically for like local development, non-CI/CD, you can use it for free, but it can clone, it can create new VMs, and it's pretty wicked fast. I've been pretty happy with it.
Hmm,
It's like the open source one that someone made a while back, but with less bugs. It's been pretty good. And
cool.
also they have a Slack that they're super
I'll have to
responsive
go
on.
check that
So
out.
yeah, I was pretty surprised because I hadn't thought about them in a couple of years. And then when I was digging around trying to get it working, they were the ones that popped up and worked the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that somewhere, Nate, and I was like, wait, are these the Veer2 people? Right? Like I remember hearing about them quite some time ago, and then they fell off my radar. Um,
Same, exactly. Yeah,
but yeah, I think again the success story is running a Mac guest on your M1 Mac because I don't
Yeah.
want I don't want to
I mean,
trivialize it. They're
in
all just
theory, it should
yeah, but
work
yes, but
if it's
they're
if
all
it's
just
an ARM
using
build. Yeah.
they're using Apple's hypervisor framework. Like that's the trick,
Hmm.
right? So they're all kind of resting on that because that's the blessed way to do it. And I think
Yeah.
last I checked, I haven't looked, but I think like that's what VMware is really struggling with. Like VMware has all
Yeah.
their own custom stuff and they don't want to give that up. And it's kind of
everyone lost snapshots. Basically overnight. This is kind of sad to go back that far.
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess we'll see those products get built up again over time. Um, Yeah, I'm trying to remember if we had a road to go back to, but I know I have a ton of stuff to ask you about. So on the personal front, um, you very often post these lovely pictures
Yeah.
uh, from across
Thank
the
you.
desert and some of your trips. Um, so if you don't mind saying what state do you reside in? I don't know.
Well, currently I'm in Ohio
Okay,
for another 2+ months.
okay.
And then we are moving to Montana. So that's why a lot of my pictures lately have been from out west.
Okay,
So
okay. Um, photography a thing? Photography seems to be a thing among computer people. I don't know why, but like it's something like I've invested a bunch into, my camera and lenses and all this stuff, and I
yeah.
love it. And maybe it just touches a particular nerdy, uh, you know, checkbox or something that you would like have this device that has a bunch of knobs and dials, and you kind of have to understand the relationship between them. Like,
Yeah.
or just is this a recent thing, or is it something you've been doing for a long time?
It's something I've been into for a long time. I used to take photos back when I was probably in middle school. I was, had my dad's old Pentax camera and
Yep.
just taking pictures on film and
Yep.
um, took many years worth of photos on Kodachrome 64 slide film and
Beautiful.
um, yeah, I tell you, my life changed though when I got my first digital camera because all of a sudden I could take as many pictures as I wanted to, and I didn't have to pay to get them processed in order to see them. I could just
Yep.
look at them, and if
Yeah.
I didn't like them, I could delete them and go take more. So
Yeah. Not burning film is a huge, huge shift.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah,
Definitely. And just the
yeah.
immediacy of it. Like
Right,
you
you
knew
can
you
look
got
at
the
it
shot.
right there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you
That
can look at it on the back of the camera, and you can be like, "Oh, darn it, they looked away," or whatever.
yeah. But I
We'll
think
take
that's,
another shot.
like any technology that took a little bit to like
Hmm.
it was cool. I never owned one, but like you didn't want to be taking all your stuff on a quick take 100, right? Like Apple's old, right? Quick take 100. Like
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
cool, but
but
it
not
took a
great
while,
quality. Yeah,
yeah, to get the resolution and all the other things.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, cool. Um, something else we usually talk about are conferences, and we've talked to death about Mac conferences. What security related conferences can you tell us about or introduce us to? We had Patrick Wardle on last month or 2 months ago. And of course, we talked Objective by the Sea. So we already know
I'm
about
sure.
Objective by the Sea
Yeah.
as that perfect sort of intersection of Mac and security.
And yeah. And
But do you have,
honestly, like that is the best Mac security conference. Honestly,
I
this is the best security conference. I shouldn't say Mac security because I think it's the only Mac security conference.
yeah, I think
But
so. I think you're right.
yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, so like other conferences, I mean, I'm sure folks have heard of Black Hat.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a big one. It gets a little crowded and it doesn't have a high proportion of Mac content, but it's really great for HallwayCon, because
yeah.
so many people are there. You can meet up with a lot of folks and renew friendships or talk tech with somebody, and it's great for that purpose. Same thing with DEF CON. DEF CON, honestly, I think I could probably live the rest of my life quite happily not going back to DEF CON. It's
Really,
just so crowded,
I find,
so big.
yeah, it is, but I find like both of those events are big, and
Yeah.
for people who aren't necessarily familiar, they're almost referred to as like Black Hat DEF CON. Like it's one, like they
Hmm.
back up against each other. They're in the
Yeah.
same area of Las Vegas. Um, to me, Black Hat is kind
It's
of,
more corporate.
yes, it's
Yeah.
almost too big. DEF CON, has all the villages like Lockpicking Village, and like so it's a little bit
Yeah.
more focused, and you can kind of target the things that are more interesting to you.
Yeah.
So I kind of find the opposite. I would give up Black Hat, but
Yeah. I have to say I do enjoy the lock picking village. And if you've never been to the social engineering
yeah,
village, that's a lot of fun at
yes,
DEF CON. If you can get into the room, that's the problem. Like a lot of these things you kind of have to stand in line for to get a seat. But yeah, the social engineering village is a lot of fun there.
Do you have to socially engineer your way into the room? Is that part of the challenge?
No, that would be interesting though. That would be a fun challenge.
Sorry, sir, we're full. You look in
But
like
yeah,
completely empty.
if you're not familiar with it, basically they put somebody into a soundproof booth at the front of the room. It's glass, so you can see them, and they'll get on the phone, and somebody outside the booth helps them dial. And their goal is to get certain pieces of information out of a target company. And so they'll just keep calling numbers at the company and trying to talk to people and trying to get as much information as they can. And they're looking for stuff that like seems completely inconsequential, like who is the garbage company, who handles the garbage, or things like that. Like, and you wouldn't even think about the potential security implications of giving that information out, but it would give somebody information about what they could wear to get into the building. If they dressed up just like the trash people that are coming in to clean up all the trash in the offices or whatever, collect the trash, they can get into the building. So it's very interesting to hear these folks talk to people at these companies and try and get all this information out of them about the structure of the company and who they do business with and all this kind of stuff. And they're very, very good at it.
I remember a few years back, pre-pandemic certainly. I think it was Starbucks had sent out a note to all their employees that like, hey, there's this conference going on this week. Like if people call and are asking for information, do not give out any information. Like they were aware of it. So
Yeah.
that was pretty interesting. Any other events that you like for, Black Hat and DEF CON?
Yeah, those are big ones. For more local conferences,
Either local or
B-Sides
things. Oh yeah, B-Sides.
is a really good one. There's probably a B-Sides conference almost anywhere that you can, anywhere near you. So I think I've been to a couple B-sides, a couple different locations, and those are good conferences. They're smaller and they kind of have a more a little bit of a DEF CON feel, but a little more approachable, a little smaller.
Yeah, the DEF CON, I mean, the B-sides that I've been to uh, are always like talk based. They're based around
Yeah,
talk.
They're more talky than
Yeah,
DEF
but
CON.
you're right, they're great. And I've been to, there's a B-sides New York.
Mhm.
I think just before the pandemic, someone did a B-sides Long Island. So there was one like really super close to me. I don't think they've tried to resurrect that quite yet, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's Austin and B-sides
yeah,
Washington. Yeah,
yeah, almost everywhere.
yeah, that's almost run like a franchise.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey, B-sides committee, I guess, whatever. Like,
yeah.
I want to run a B-sides in my area. Can I use your template and your logo and yeah,
Yeah,
your for kind of running this event.
yeah, yeah. I guess DerbyCon was a good one. That one was definitely similar to DEF CON on a smaller scale, but it's been discontinued. It has not happened in a while.
I remember hearing that name. I never attended. I don't.
Yeah, I only got to go once. It was the last year that they had it, before they shut it down. ShmooCon in DC, I've never been there, but it's supposed to be similar.
I've heard that's a great one, and I know they run
Yeah.
a lot of like ShmooCon's kind of funny. Like I don't think I've ever heard about talks at the event, but I've heard about all the puzzles that they run, and
Yeah,
that's a big piece of that, the culture of that conference, which sounds really cool.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, there are tons of others too. You know, there's Wild West Hacking Fest that I forget where that happens. I've never been to that one, and a number of others. There are plenty of little one-off conferences out there that you can find. So
Yeah. Okay.
lots,
Cool.
lots and lots to choose from.
I wasn't sure if you had a favorite outside of Objective by the Sea.
That one is by far the best.
Yeah. This year, I'm really on the fence, like he's doing it in person again,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
In
tempting.
Spain.
Regardless of the location, I mean, we knew it was going to be outside of the US, or at least
Mm-hmm.
the continental US, right? Like, but we knew like this cycle was the European one versus
Yeah.
one in Hawaii. And I don't know. I'm really sort of weighing that. I've been super careful around, COVID and just,
Same. Yeah.
crossing borders and sitting on a plane. What's the flight from New York to Barcelona? It has to be 7-8 hours, right? And then you're in an
I'm
airport for a
sure.
while.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I want this summer to sort of like prove this all out and get us back
Mm-hmm.
very low, you know, transmission rates and see very low cases. I think everyone's hoping for
Yeah.
that. I want people to kind of do the things necessary to get us there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And my wife and I, and our son here at home, we haven't gotten it. We've managed to avoid it. We have done a little bit of flying, but yeah, I just had traveled last week, and traveling since the mask mandate was lifted
Yeah.
feels a little more uncomfortable than it used to. It wasn't comfortable before, but it's yeah,
Yeah.
a little kind of, I don't know, doesn't feel great. So
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't even thought about that, like just getting into that situation, because I'm
mm.
definitely down with like I'll wear a mask wherever, like,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
I'll
me
I'll
too.
still wear one on a plane even if they're not required. But
Yeah,
it at some point is strange, like looking around, like no one else is wearing one but me.
yeah, that's me. Like all last week I was out in Montana. Nobody in Montana is wearing masks. Like
Yeah.
nobody. well, almost. But yeah, I'd walk into somewhere and I'd be the only person wearing a mask.
Yeah, and now, like I said, I'm in New York, and just like the case numbers are going up in and around, Manhattan, the 5 boroughs. So it's like, okay, I continue hopping on a train and going into an office there. I don't have to. So why put myself in that in that position? So I'm not sure. But again, I'm hoping with the nicer weather that sort of tamps down a bit. So
yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, I've got to say I understood why MacAdmins couldn't be in person again this year,
Yeah.
but I'm disappointed. This was the last year that I could drive over there. It'll be a flight next time.
Right. I've definitely heard like that's not the easiest flight, right? Like you have to fly and then like switch to a smaller plane, like you go to a small like regional airport, and then you still have a bit of a drive or something.
Yeah. Or fly in somewhere and drive over from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think again with the timing and with
somewhere.
the weather, I would have thought Penn State could have been in person, but I guess with the school sort of backing them, they're not exactly an independent conference, right? Like they have all school mechanisms that are probably telling them it's like, nope. Like, and out of all the Mac related conferences, they're one of the largest. So the school probably didn't want them like, yeah, don't bring 600 people together all in the same spot, please. on our Please don't do that one.
Yeah, I understand that.
I
completely understandable. So
I understand it. And Mac DevOps is kicking off in I don't know, just a few weeks.
Yeah.
And, Matt just released that lineup, and man, it's a killer lineup. Oh, are you the keynote to that, Eric? Are you? I know you're the keynote to something.
Yep, Mac DevOps.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Like, I can't think of a better start to that event because, like, what a lineup! Once I saw the lineup, I was like, oh, I want this to be in person.
I know, and I've never been to it in person, so I can't wait to actually be able to go to it in person.
It's when you get a chance to do that, you should definitely do it because it is kind of not in a bad way, but it's the opposite of Penn State that we were just talking about. It's like, I think, the first time I went, it was like 60 people or something. So it's like, it's a very intimate. If you want to meet every attendee, you can meet every attendee.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So that's definitely a nice one. And Matt always just does a killer job of running it and hosting it and making sure everyone's comfortable. And that's good. So yeah, well, congratulations on the keynote, Eric. And
thanks, Ed.
It's
a lot for you to say that.
Yeah, and it's a great lineup in general. So I do have to go get my tickets for that. But Objective by the Sea, Thomas, what are you doing? Are you going?
Oh yeah, I'm
you
planning to. I'm going to submit a talk, and
right.
I'm going to try and go. Well, I guess it'll kind of depend on what the COVID situation is like, whether I go in person or whether I present remotely. But
that's what I was asking. Are you going to go?
Yeah.
Are you going to go?
That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping to. And we have a research office in Spain. So there's some reason for me to go over there.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm kind of hoping that maybe some of our researchers that do some of the Mac work might be able to go.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's hoping that I can go in person. Really, really hoping.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know what my cutoff is. Like, I don't know how long I would have to decide, and get tickets and do the hotel and everything.
I was supposed to be there in person in, I think it was like end of March 2020 when it was happening in Hawaii. And
I remember this.
yeah, I had just been to an event at our Florida office, literally the week before.
Yeah.
And we had flown people in from all over, including Italy, which while we were there, Italy was blowing up.
Yep.
And Estonia, several other places around the world. And I flew back and I start out like I was having a sore throat, runny nose. I was like, oh crap.
Yep.
I can't go to Objective by the Sea, and I had to cancel the travel and present remotely. And of course, by the time my session rolled around, I was fine. I was
still,
dang it.
yeah. Even if you had like just a cold, like
Yeah,
do you want to?
nobody would have. Yeah, I mean, if I had still been sick while there, nobody would have wanted to be around me. So
We didn't have test kits then.
I was just going to say, like, I don't know. I think there was still so much unknown at that time. I think people would have probably been.
It was, yeah, and it was scary at the time. I was, I was very nervous about that. So yeah, I ended up not going.
Yeah, you were smart, absolutely.
But yeah, and I mean that Malwarebytes event the week before, we had a product manager from our Tallinn office in Estonia who ended up getting stuck in Florida for several months.
Well, that was, I don't know about
closed their borders.
Yes, I don't know about several months, but that was the story. Objective by the Sea, like people went and then
they couldn't get back.
Some people were like,
easily.
Oh, yeah, how do I get home now? So I definitely
stuck in Hawaii, stuck in Florida.
Yeah.
I'd take Hawaii.
Yeah.
But it's still it's no fun being stuck wherever it is.
Yeah.
Well, it depends who's paying. You don't find that funny?
I mean, it's the reality is that we've got home lives, and to be torn away from that when timing might not be right is can be pretty traumatic.
Depends how long you're stuck for.
Yeah.
I was in Switzerland and I flew back. It was 2010, I guess, whatever. I flew back the day before Mount Unpronounceable in Iceland.
The volcano.
Oh yeah.
Stopped all air traffic. And I was like, oh man, just an extra day. I could have like hung out in Switzerland on Google's dime for a little bit longer. That wouldn't have been that terrible,
Yeah, a couple days.
Yeah, a couple days. It cleared up. It's fine.
So a piece of trivia, I actually know how to pronounce that. Eyjafjallajökull.
Well done.
You determined that you wanted to do that, right?
Like how long did
Well, we actually visited Iceland a few years, like probably 2 or 3 years before the pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like a requirement. If you're going to be there, you have to learn how to say it. So.
All right. Well, how long did you practice that?
It took me a little while.
Yeah.
Because you forget some of the syllables. You're like, oh, what is it? But once you learn sort of the pattern of like how they all sound, then it's you just get it. It's like riding a bike.
Nice.
So,
nice. Yeah, it does. It takes practice.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're almost at an hour. Anything else you want to tell us about your role or Malwarebytes or the malware or pup landscape around Macs? What should people be doing to protect themselves?
Yeah, so to protect yourselves, honestly, and this is trite advice, but it's still good advice. Be careful what you download and what you click on. And of course, at the same time that it's good advice, it's also bad advice because, as somebody said, we're telling people don't click things on the thing clicking machine. So you have to pick and choose what you click on. and that's very difficult for, it's easy for me to, for all of us, right, to follow that advice, but it's very difficult for the average person to know what's legitimate and what's not. But just if you always spend a little time thinking before you click on something that you weren't expecting, like in an email that you weren't expecting, just think about it. Don't go click it right away. If you do want to click it, maybe like if it's from your credit card company, supposedly, maybe instead of clicking the link, just go log on the way you normally would without clicking the link in the email. And so, if you think about it a little bit, and use some alternate methods to avoid clicking the links in an email, that can go a long way towards keeping you safer. Same thing with downloads. Don't go to weird download sites. I always say, avoid places like download.com and Mac Update and places like that, because they've been known to host malware before. Not intentionally, but it's been there. There's been malware distributed through those sites before, because that's not the developer's website, so it's always try and go to the developer's website or to the App Store. I honestly, if an app is available on either the App Store or on the developer's website, unless there's a compelling reason, I'm going to get it from the App Store instead.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And the App Store is not foolproof, but it's a little better than just a random website. So.
Yeah, and it's probably easier to set to auto update through the App Store and all those.
Yeah. And that's another good piece of advice. Keep everything on auto update. Don't do it manually. Do everything automatic. Although I don't follow my own advice when it comes to the system, because I don't want it rebooting at some time when I'm not ready. But I still make sure that I'm updating it.
Yeah,
in a timely fashion.
I think I was really just referring to apps, because I do the same thing. I don't do automatic system updates, but automatic app updates, have at it.
Absolutely.
Keep me up to date. Actually, it's just hitting me now. There actually was a really good announcement yesterday, Friday, the Apple, Google
the passwordless.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is great news, because one of the most important properties of WebAuthn, which is really doing all the work behind the scenes, is kind of like, your FIDO key or whatever, is anti-phishing, basically, right? It binds to a domain, and then if someone's sending you something that looks like that domain,
but isn't,
your passkey isn't going to work, or your FIDO not going to work, which is fantastic, because, oh man, OTPs and 2FA in general is just like, it's a big band-aid on top of passwords. It's necessary, but it's not great that we have to do this, but you have everything. So you do these numeric codes, and that is unfortunately super easy to sort of like talk someone into, like,
there have been all kinds of scams about that recently.
Yeah, here's a link, go sign in. Oh, by the way, I'm going to be sending you this code. Tell me what the code is. Or there are these other, pass-through servers that will fake the target website, do the 2FA, take. It's not great, but the idea of WebAuthn and this announcement from Apple that, like, hey, you can use your iPhone with biometrics as this single strong source, and we're going to sync that around your devices for you. Like, that's a huge win.
Cool.
I think, there will be some nerds like the people on this call that will still use their hardware security token, because it is slightly more secure for certain things. But I think for the average person, like we're talking about, like, if you're not deep in the technology world, like, you don't want to have to think about all the things that you can't click on and do and get to work. So yeah,
Yeah.
the WebAuthn in the background is
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And honestly, like you say, you know, I've got one of these. I've
yes,
got several of these actually,
several and the backup.
and I
Yeah.
can't plug that in anything anymore.
Well, so I did
So I
upgrade
have
to
to
the USB-C
upgrade.
one, but the
Yeah,
most important thing about these, like I don't know if my camera will pick it up, but the little, wireless symbol there is that they're NFC also, and
that would be cool.
this
Yeah,
worked with your
with your
iPhone, and it
phone.
worked great. You just
Yeah,
no power necessary. You just sort of, when requested, you tap it to the back of your iPhone, it picks it up
yeah,
through NFC, and it does the second factor for you. So
yeah. I
that's
just
great.
wish more places supported them. So many don't.
Yeah, I think for me, the right places that I care about support them,
Mhm.
like Google and all the
Yeah,
Google services, obviously,
yeah,
Fastmail, GitHub, like it's more of the stuff that I really kind of want to protect
yeah, yeah,
supports,
yeah.
which is great.
But what's really ironic is the places that have the worst process for login, banks.
Always, always.
I mean, it's not even two-factor authentication. It's like security questions.
Yeah, and I
For a lot of cases. Speaking of which, that's another piece of good security advice. If the security question is, you know, what's your mother's maiden name, don't answer it. Type in garbage. Get your password manager to generate a 20 character random string and stick that in there as your mother's maiden name.
Yep,
And
exactly. Great
store it in
advice.
your password manager.
Exactly what I do for
If you
all.
have to use that.
Yeah, well, usually for the questions, they give you 3 questions, and for all of them,
Mhm.
I'm like, "Hey,
Yeah.
1 password, generate crap, generate crap, generate crap." Like, that
Yeah.
will be a challenge. Eh, I g I guess nowadays you just type it back in to answer your security questions, but there was, like, back in the day, if you called for support, they might ask you one of them. It's like, "What's your grandmother's maiden name?" 3
um,
plus 0 capital X, like, and you would have to go through a long string of random garbage, but
yeah.
it would be worth it just to hear their reaction, I think. They're like,
No, really, that really was her
"A
maiden
weird maiden name, but you got
name.
it right."
It's Norwegian.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Thomas, for taking your time. It was a pleasure seeing you. I am hoping that I will see you in person at Objective by the Sea.
I hope so. Or
I'm
somewhere.
yeah, or somewhere.
Somewhere soon.
We're
Yeah.
gonna see each other somewhere soon, and good luck with your move to Montana. That sounds
Thank
great.
you. Thank you.
All right,
It's gonna be a busy couple months.
sounds like it. Thanks, everybody.